Hey everyone, it's Phil K here from Night Hour Films. Welcome, thanks for tuning in. So, writer's block. Those two words, writers and block. We never like to hear it. We go through it. And today I want to share some tips with other people out there as to how to get around it, get through it, work through it, or however you want to call it. Writer's block is a pain in the backside. If you've experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. It's that frustration. You just can't think clearly. Clues in the title, writer's block. And the more you try and think of an idea or a story or character or whatever, the worse it gets. And I've struggled with it myself. And one bit of advice that I've always seen as common advice is it doesn't matter what you write down, get something written down. Think of it as when you've had a bad day and you let all your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings sort of stay inside you, you know, it all adds up before the bottle pops open or the kettle boils and etc etc. And people have always said to me, it doesn't matter what the idea is, how poor it sounds, it doesn't matter if you just write one line, one paragraph, write something down. Why? Because you're letting your creative process express even the rubbish that you have. And people might be saying, well, what kind of thing is that to say? Rubbish. The whole reason writer's block is there, in my opinion, is because your brain, your mind, your creative cognitive process is trying to think of something. And it's sort of like not retail therapy as such, but you're looking for a way to extract the idea and to put it on paper. And sometimes you've got to write a bit of rubbish down to get through to the next chapter that will actually help you move forward. Now, another little tip, and this is a very common one, you've probably heard it yourselves before: write what you know about. So for me personally, I was surrounded by horror films growing up. I love horror films, psychological horror, don't mind the odd comedy or drama. But for me personally, horror films, psychological horror is what I am good at. It's what I have done the most research on for several years. And like many people out there, I've come across people in my life who weren't the nicest of people. And when you're putting characters together with your character development, I say to myself, right, I remember this person did this person did that, right. Is it a narcissist? Is it a serial killer? Is it a psychopath? Write a character based on someone you already know. Obviously, change the details so it's not identical. But when you do that, you tend to find that things slowly start to fall in place, kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. Another little tip, as obvious as this will sound, whenever I do get writer's block, I rewatch some comedies. Why? Someone said to me a while back that comedies are the opposite of horror. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And they basically said, you can't sort of laugh at everything unless you put a bit of sarcasm in the humour. And so, for example, I was watching a film a while back. Some of you might have heard of it. White Chicks, with the two brothers who made it. I can't remember the names. And when I seen that, I thought, you know what? Imagine if one of them was murdered, you know, whilst undercover. And again, it sounds like a daft idea, but it came out of my head. And I thought, you know what? Write it down, move on, and just if you go back to it, you go back to it. If you don't, you don't. With horror though, I tend to do it the opposite way around. I think, right, what people find funny about a comedy, I am going to have to think about what a psychopath or a serial killer would find entertaining about killing someone or torturing them or just, you know, stalking them or harassing or whatever. And when you do that, what tends to happen is, in my opinion, you sort of put yourself in the mind of the serial killer and you create better character development content because you're actually thinking, right. It's not easy to do. I will say that it's not easy to do, to put your mind in that type of mindset, i.e., thinking of sick and twisted things. But that's the way you've got to sort of do it. And when you do that, you might think, right, well, I'll give an example. Billy in Scream 1, obviously, he got off on killing people. You know, it was a buzz for him and Stu. And when you think of it like that, it helps you to put better quality writing together. So whenever I've watched Scream, the original film, I take note of how Wes Craven directed a certain scene, how he managed to play it out, and how the camera angles work to build the tension and the anxiety and the suspense. And when you look at those elements, you can sort of think, right, I've got an idea. It's not a very good one, but let's see how we can play with it, expand on it, advance on it, make it work. It doesn't always work. I will say that. And you know what? Don't beat yourself up over it if certain techniques and tricks and methods don't work for you. There is that many ways to go around it. What I'm telling you might not work for you, but it does work for me. And when I have written down an idea that came to my head after watching Scream, for example, I might think, right, leave it be there for a week, come back to it in a week's time with a fresh mind, fresh pair of eyes, see what I think of it then. With writer's block, it's one of those things where there is never a correct answer as to how to get through it. It's more of a gradual process. Things will get better. It will pass. It will come to you. That one hit wonder idea that you will have yourselves, it will come to you, but it won't come to you in the way you want it to come to you. Whether it be you're at a family gathering and something just pops into your head after something's said, or whether you're driving your car down the road and you see something really out of the ordinary, bizarre, and it triggers something inside, or whether you listen to music, or whether you're just talking to a random person you're passing by, I don't know. There is that many different ways your imagination will just go ping. It's like, wow, I didn't think of that. For example, where I live, there is a really, really nice, big, massive woodlands behind where I live. And on a night time, I often go out for a walk when I hear noises, whether it's the owls or, the cracking of a twig or the leaves, rustling in the wind. It gets my adrenaline going. It gets my fight or flight mode kicking in. And it's like, right, well, that scared me. Why is it scaring me? How is this scaring me? What's causing it to scare me? What's fear? What's the paranoia from it? And when you're able to do that, let your mind run free. Don't sort of think, oh, I've got this idea now, I've got that idea now. Just think, there's an idea. There's another idea. I've just heard a dog barking. Right, what if there's someone, who's, alarmed the dog? What if there's an intruder nearby? What if there's just a psychopath in the woods waiting to kill someone? A lot of you might be watching this thinking now, what the bloody hell do you watch? This is why it's called writer's block, because it makes your mind go do lally, and it can be very mentally draining. It's one of those phases that many people go through. It's annoying, it's frustrating, it does drive you up the wall. Ultimately, though, you've got to work with it. It will pass. Write any ideas down you have. No idea is, what's the word to put it? No idea is never not valid. It may not be a good idea, but it doesn't mean it's not valid, because someone else might come along, read your notes and think, you've given me an idea. I've just seen this happen, and now you've written that. It's like, wow, let's join the two together and make this work. It's a collaborative process within yourself and with other people, and it's not one to beat yourself up over, even though you probably used to. And yeah, it's with writer's block, I wouldn't necessarily call it a problem per se. It's more of, you want to bring out the best writing you have from within inside you, and sometimes you've got to go through a few rough days to get to that, and that's okay. That is the process. That is okay. Don't be put off by it. Don't obviously listen to other people that say you won't get anything written down. You will. I have had writer's block for the last few weeks, and that's why I thought I'll come on and do this podcast, because I wanted to help other people out there who suffer from it as well. It's more common than people think. I've heard many people say, "Oh, I never get writer's block." Everyone gets writer's block. It might not be as big as some people's can be. I've known people to go crazy because they just cannot think of an idea, and it's just one of those dilemmas to sort of an ongoing headache. When it comes by, it's like, right, let's play the game then. Let's see what we get from it, and ultimately, you can either work with it or you can work against it. I always recommend working with it. If you get writer's block, don't think to yourself, "Oh, I'm useless, I'm no good, I've got low self-esteem, I can't be that good at writing." The world's greatest writers will have had writer's block, and it's a stage that once you finally get through it, it's amazing feeling. You get your idea written down on paper, you're over the moon with it, you're happy with it, you're happy to move forward with it, and you think, bloody hell, I didn't expect all that to happen. And that's why I say to people, you've just got to sort of go with it. It will pass, but it won't pass overnight or when you just want it to. And on that note, thanks again for watching. Take care, guys.